It is dark, dark, dark in those woods at night. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Every kid who's ever been to camp has heard scary stories around the campfire about ghosts, monsters, and bogeymen who lurk just beyond the fire circle. Even then, most people don't believe those stories, and the ones who do are picked on and teased. After all, who's ever heard of kids at scout camp really being killed by someone hiding in the forest? Perhaps, if they knew the story of what happened at Camp Scott in Mayes County, Oklahoma, they wouldn't be so sure. The build-up. Camp Scott was one of Oklahoma's finest Girl Scout camps. In 1977, it was gearing up to celebrate its 50th year of being open. Around 50 miles outside of Tulsa, the camp was situated on 410 acres of land, with a creek on site and clusters of platform tents spread out among the trees. For those who were never scouts as kids, a platform tent is a large canvas tent pitched semi-permanently on a raised wooden platform, sometimes with a tin roof or tarp on top. It can usually sleep 4 to 6 people, and has zippers on both sides of the tent to close the inner flap, with ties to close the outer and side flaps. There is no way to 100% close the tent in a secure way, but it is generally a sturdier option than tent camping on the ground, and platform tents are somewhere between a cabin and a tent in terms of comfort. Like many Girl Scout camps, the tents at Camp Scott were arranged in small campsites scattered throughout the camp, each with fire pits and related amenities. The campsites at Camp Scott had the names of various American Indian tribes to differentiate them. Sometime before the crime itself, a training session was held at the camp for the counselors and the CIDs, counselors in training. One of the counselors had brought a box of donuts, which she left with her personal belongings. When she returned from her activities, she found that the donuts were gone, and in their place was a disturbing note. The note said that 3 campers were going to be murdered. The counselor showed the note to the camp directors, who thought it was a typical sick prank, and the note was discarded.
The murder. The 1977 camp season had just started, and Girl Scouts from across the state, many from nearby Tulsa, were bused in to attend the first week-long camp session. School had just let out, and the girls were in good spirits. June 12th was a Sunday, with misty and rainy weather. As the buses arrived, the girls all piled out and were split into groups to head to each campsite. Though I've never determined the details, I imagine based on my own experiences as a Girl Scout, they were probably grouped based on age or grade level. The rest of the evening was filled with normal camp activities, archery, swimming, making s'mores around the campfire. But as the night fell, the misty weather turned into an all-out downpour, and the activities had to be abandoned as the girls ran to the safety of their platform tents. Safety, however, is a relative term. The 3 victims were Lori Lee Farmer, age 8, Michelle Heather Hughes, age 9, and Doris Denise Miller, age 10. They were staying in the Kiowa unit. Like most of the campgrounds, Kiowa was arranged in a bit of a horseshoe pattern, with a campfire and a common area in the center. On one end was the counselor's tent. But the difference with the Kiowa unit was that there was another tent, number 8, which was further from the others and back in the woods a little way, obscured from the view of the counselor's tent by the shower building for that area. This was the tent that the victims were staying in. Around 6 a.m. on the 13th, one of the counselors took her things to go and get a shower before most of the girls would be up. She cut through and went down the hillside to the trail which led to the bathhouse. As she neared, she saw 3 sleeping bags lying on the trail, piled up on one another. Confused, she unzipped the bag on top, and discovered the bodies. They had been sexually assaulted, hit with the flashlight found at the scene, and strangled to death. The camp was immediately evacuated. Dogs were brought in to sniff for clues. A single, unknown fingerprint was taken from the flashlight's lens, and a footprint, size men's 9.5, was found in the copious blood left in the tent. A local landowner reported hearing quite a bit of traffic on the small,
running between the camp and his property between 2:30 and 3 a.m. on the 13th. A massive manhunt was launched for the killer.
Trevor Hamlin went missing from Paradise, NL, in June 2018. In the weeks prior, Pete sustained a cut to his arm. His sister thinks he lied about how he got it. Months after Trevor vanished, there was activity on his Snapchat account. Did he disappear by choice or was he a victim of foul play? At around 3:00 p.m. on Saturday 16th of June 2018, Trevor Hamlin was last seen by his roommate near his Imogen Crescent home in the small town of Paradise, Newfoundland. He had plans to attend a party that evening and was carrying a black backpack with a bottle of whiskey and some ginger ale in it. Trevor, who was known as Pepsi to those close to him, was reported missing by his family 3 days later after he failed to contact them. The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary began looking into Trevor's disappearance, and in the early stages of the investigation, they received information suggesting the 33-year-old was recently spending time in the woods with unknown individuals. They checked ferry and flight records to ensure Trevor hadn't left the province of his own accord. He hadn't. Trevor's family launched appeals on social media asking members of the public to come forward if they'd seen Trevor or knew anything about where he may be. In the weeks following, Ashley and Jeff Hamlin, Trevor's siblings, stopped going to work so they could put up missing posters, hand out flyers, and comb areas of Paradise the RNC hadn't searched yet. Police asked residents in the area to check their security camera footage as well as their dash cams in hopes of finding out whether Trevor was walking or was picked up by someone. The only video Trevor is known to appear in is of poor quality and doesn't show how he left his neighborhood. The RNC also went door to door interviewing over 30 neighbors, but uncovered little new information. On 25 June, Trevor's family were conducting one of their ground searches when they found something in a wooded area, a cell phone, which the RNC later confirmed to be Trevor's. It wasn't his current cell phone, that's still missing to this day. It was an older, broken cell phone, lying face up in the grass with no dirt on it. Ashley believes it was placed there deliberately. She said, "We even had a private tracker who came out, and there was no scent of Trevor at all in the whole area, so how does his phone just appear? And in such good condition? I mean, it had a cracked screen, but there was no dirt, no leaves, no nothing on it." The phone was analyzed and found to provide no new insight into Trevor's disappearance. Then in October 2018, something odd happened. One of Trevor's friends sent out a group Snapchat, and it was opened by Trevor's account. Law enforcement was able to gain access to his profile and began monitoring activity on the app. Despite this development, time passed with little progress in the case, and although Trevor's family continued to search for him, they were growing increasingly frustrated with the pace of the investigation and lack of communication from the RNC. Jeff said in an October 2018 interview, "The RNC were helpful and respectful at first, but now it seems they have other issues that require their attention, and my brother's case isn't a priority even though we constantly provide them with the information they cannot obtain themselves." A few weeks prior to when he was last seen, Trevor told his sister a deep cut he had on his arm came from holding a piece of wood up so his friend could chop it with an axe. Ashley remembers being suspicious of this story. The children grew up in a relatively rural area and she believes her brother would have known better than to chop wood that way. Trevor refused to go to hospital to have the injury treated until days later, when his mother finally convinced him to. Trevor's sister theorizes that he may have fallen in with a bad crowd and seen something he wasn't supposed to. The person who was supposedly in the woods with Trevor when his arm injury happened has never come forward, and Ashley thinks the cut was a warning to her brother. Of what, she's not sure. Ashley describes Trevor as a happy, sociable guy who had a lot of friends and was well liked. He grew up in Mount Pearl before moving to Paradise, where he ran a siding business. It's been over 2 years since Trevor vanished and there have been no arrests in connection to his case.